What is education, and why is education important? Is it important? After all, what's the real purpose of getting educated about anything? We so frequently take education and the process for learning in general totally for granted. Not only that, but the ways in which we think. How we've gone about structuring our own consciousness itself has largely remained unchanged for a long, long time. So how do we literally change our minds? Can we reconfigure our own ways of thinking? And if so, how? Join Dr. Joseph Atman, the founder of one of the world's most revolutionary educational centers, Middletree, and award-winning broadcaster Tammy Trujillo for Educate Everyone and explore the mysteries of our own consciousness and the education we implement in order for it to be what it is.
Our guest on this episode of Educate Everyone is Deanna Alsdorf. She's the Community Development Coordinator at Foothill Family Shelter in Upland, California. In this role, she manages all social media and communication platforms, including Facebook, Instagram, and Constant Contact. She's also responsible for networking, content creation, marketing fund development, campaigns, planning special events, and representing Foothill Family Shelter at community and networking meetings. And in the second half of our conversation with Deanna, we learn more about the rewards she gets from her work.
You're obviously very passionate about it. What does it bring to you?
Every day at work, and, as I mentioned earlier, being in the nonprofit sector and wearing many hats, it takes a lot. It's a lot of work, but the appreciation is the fulfillment. It's seeing these families grow and, seeing these families come to us and they look like normal families. And there's not a look of, homelessness doesn't have one look. There are families that you would see at school or at a grocery store that just look like regular families, regular kids, and just seeing their growth and development and knowing that even though my role doesn't work directly with the families, what I do supports these families and their journeys. That's the fulfillment, and it's just amazing. I have been very fortunate in life to have that stable foundation, and I've been very blessed. And now I believe that I'm being called to become a blessing to others with that. And just that fulfillment and knowing that I have a small part of their success. Ultimately, they're the ones doing the work and, they deserve all the credit. But just having that influence and opportunity to be of something way bigger than myself, that fulfillment just makes my heart happy every single day, even when it's hard and feels like I wish I could clone myself and I could do 50 more things right now. Just knowing the why, having a strong understanding of our why and being a part of this. I said earlier as well, we're 6 people on our team. We all work really, really hard. And to just have that strong core, making a difference in this world, it goes a really big way. And so I'm very, very fortunate.
I love so many of the things that you just said, and so many things that I can also kind of relate to, having worked in the nonprofit sector for as long as Middletree has been around. But you certainly don't do this work for the fame, honor, and glory, right?
Yeah.
All of your successes, and especially as I've found the most important and actually impactful ones, at least on individuals, on people who, again, and at the end of the day, you set out to do a mission. You set out to be a part of a mission to help individuals, to help people. And whatever that mission might be, whether it's becoming an educator, whether it's working at a homeless shelter, you're there to help people at the end of the day. And that glory that we kind of think about sometimes with some of the jobs that people might do, really at the end of the day, that doesn't mean anything if you're not helping those individuals. And the accolades that you kind of drum up in your mind about certain things really are kind of just altogether meaningless. Right. Really what is important is, of course, just reaching and making those people's lives who you set out to help with the work that you're doing, making those lives all the better. But at the same time, why I bring this up on this point is because sometimes, you need a little pat on the back, right, to keep going. And right. Sometimes, you know what I mean? And sometimes it's hard and again, I know this all too well from doing this work. You'll have this wonderful success, and yet at the same time, you turn around and you've got 100 other things staring you in the face. Right. Within the work, within the business, right, that you've got to attend to. So it's like, okay, glad that we got this victory. Now we have 100 other battles to keep on facing.
You're saying this and you can't see me right now, but I am nodding my head. Yes, yes, yes. We see that every day. And we were actually just having a conversation about this with the coworkers of, sometimes we take successes for granted, and not that we don't appreciate them, but we don't realize how big of a deal they are because we're so accustomed to it. For example, I think we had a family reach $10,000 in savings last week or so. And that's wonderful. We're accustomed to it, but you have to take a step back sometimes and be like, whoa, that is a really big accomplishment. And it really, family deserves credit. The team deserves credit for it. And you may not hear that external appreciation for the goal, but really celebrating that and how big of a deal it is, it goes a long way, because you're totally right. You don't get the recognition, and a lot of our work is quiet yet important work. But when you take a step back and realize those accomplishments, even if they don't seem earth shattering, it's still a big deal. And kind of getting that self gratitude or that appreciation as a team, it goes a long way as well.
Yeah. And again, because we all need a little bit of motivation, we all need, and again, those pats on the back, those accolades can be really helpful sometimes. I mean, it's easy when you're getting all the glory and this attention and just being fueled. But the vast, vast, vast majority of people in the nonprofit sector don't receive that kind of attention and support. So to do nonprofit work, you have to not only have the motivation and the willingness and a love for the mission. And again, what's the mission always going to be about? It's always going to be about the individuals who you're trying to serve and reach through it. But you not only have to have a passion for that stuff, but you have to have this grit and tenacity to kind of just keep soldiering on and keep in mind that you're doing this work and you're doing it for a reason. And I also loved something that you said earlier about you being called to do this kind of stuff. I'd love to hear more about that, because I think, again, for those who are either thinking about getting into the nonprofit space or are already in it, there has to be that feeling of that lure, and of you being one who is going to almost blindly follow that lure on faith. And that doesn't have to be a faith of a religious kind or anything like that, but it's got to be a faith in mission, in humanity. You have to be really optimistic. I think you have to be an optimist when you're in the nonprofit space, because you have to be optimistic about the fact that what you're going to do is going to be impactful, and it is going to change maybe not the entire world, but a world or two. And you're doing that one person, one act, one day at a time. So I think for those who are really going to be successful, not only individuals, but those missions, have to keep in mind that that lure has to be continually pursued, and that you have to be optimistic about the things that you're doing in spite of and in the face of all the difficulties that you're going to encounter along the road. And again, you're going to have successes, and then you're going to literally and almost in the same breath have to deal with all of those other things and all of those other needs and all of those other parts within your mission that still need you to attend to them, because the mission hopefully is ongoing. And I used to say this about what we do at Middletree is, if we do our job correctly, you won't need us anymore. And I think that's kind of true with most nonprofits. If we're really, really successful, if Foothill Family Shelter was super successful and we were able to turn every family in the Inland Empire around, well, there'd be no more reason to have the program. And that really is kind of the goal of everything, which is a very different model than most other businesses, right? There's a lot to unpack there, but I think, again, you have to have a very particular kind of heart to work in the nonprofit space. Mm-hmm. You have to have, again, that kind of grit and tenacity to do what you do in the nonprofit space. And you have to be service-minded and remember that that is your motivation. And remember that you are here to serve. And in that service, you find everything that you need to fulfill you and that mission that we're all really actually, and in the end, ourselves servicing.
I agree 100%. And I think day to day, it's hard And, sometimes it feels like your back is up against the wall and you're like, how are we going to accomplish this? Or, and we don't have a 100% success rate. I would love to sit here, but I'd love to find any program that has a 100% success rate, because it is challenging and things can go wrong, and that's normal. But you really have to take a step back sometimes and really get grounded on your why and keep your why the focus. And we had a director and she really was strong about that. And that was so helpful to us. Just remember why we're here. Despite the challenges, we're here for a greater purpose. And you mentioned something when you were just speaking just now about you're not going to change the world overnight. As much as we'd love to, and maybe there are some people that could do that, but unless you have a magic wand or something, you're not going to fix a major crisis overnight. But we have to do our part into making a difference in this world. And that's sort of how we see it. We're not going to end homelessness in the Inland Empire overnight. We may never end homelessness in the Inland Empire, but we can start ending homelessness by fixing it one family at a time, changing the life of a family one at a time. And I think that's such an important philosophy to believe in and to trudge forward with, because it can be intimidating. Insert whatever problem, whether it's homelessness or climate change or whatever, these massive problems, but we're only going to get to fixing that problem if we do what we can and we do it one step at a time. I'm so glad you talked about that, because it's really important, just to anybody entering the nonprofit world or even just being a citizen. Just do your part and make your own difference, and it will have domino effects. And so just everyone doing their part in that sense, we will see positive change.
Absolutely. How can people get involved, both to support and if they need your services?
Absolutely. So I'll start with services. We have our housing program, and we also have a food pantry. And so our food pantry, it's free of charge, and it's once every 30 days. Just come to our office for non-perishable food, produce, diapers, hygiene products. And so it really allows us to serve our greater community. And so anytime anyone needs that assistance, our doors are open. And same with our housing program. Always start by giving us a call. Our phone number, or going on our website, www.foothillfamilyshelter.org, or giving us a call at 909-920-0453. And we have our team of volunteers who really do the hard work, are really our driving force behind our mission, and they're happy to serve you and answer questions or provide other resources to anyone who may need services. So our doors are open, and we're here to serve the community. On the other hand of supporting our organization, I always say stay connected with us on social media. We're on Facebook and Instagram, and stay connected with us on our website. Sign up for our newsletter. Those are really great tools to stay connected and keep in touch with different opportunities. There's always ways to support, of course, monetary, but besides monetary, it could be volunteerism. Like I said, our volunteers really help push our good work forward on a day-to-day basis. And so we're always in need of volunteers. We're always in need of supplies for our pantry, canned foods, box products, things like that, household cleaning supplies, diapers, wipes, whether it's, a family that goes to the grocery store and drops it off at our office, all the way up to service clubs or churches or corporate partners that can put together big drives for us. Those really go a long way. And the nice thing about being in a small nonprofit is every donation makes a difference. Every donation stays to Foothill Family Shelter and goes to serve our immediate neighbors in our backyard. So it's a really great organization. And contact me. I'm Deanna. Call the phone number, and I'd love to talk and see how we can make a difference, because no donation is too small, no support is too small, and it really all comes together to make the difference that we make in our community.
Yeah, that's for sure. Thank you, Deanna, for not only being here, but again, for the work that you all do over there. It's so important, and it is so impactful. Like I said, kind of at the top of this, I wish that there were more organizations out there doing that kind of focus work that you all do at Foothill Family Shelter. So again, thank you for being here. And I apologize if any of my donations had holes or stains in them. I walk around like that, unknowing my clothes just have that. And so I didn't mean to pass any of those off on you, but that was just how my wardrobe is. But again, thanks so much for what you do and for taking the time today to share all of that with us.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you for all you do and for having these important conversations. And we don't know what the future is going to hold, but as long as organizations and people like us continue doing what we can, that's all that matters. And positive change will happen. And it starts with just one person, one organization, one whatever. It all starts with one. So I'm really happy to have had the time to speak with you today. I've been doing all the hand gestures and faces, and I realized you can't even see me. So this was a fun opportunity to just have this important conversation. And I'm just so glad that it all worked out, that we were able to connect today.
And now the Middle Tree Minute.
This is Kristen Hernandez, Middle Tree's executive assistant. Did you know physical movement can help your student learn better? It's true. Even just 5 minutes of stretching or a quick dance break can reset the brain. Before studying, have your student do a few jumping jacks or even take a walk around the block. It boosts oxygen, energy, and even attention. Learning doesn't always have to happen at a desk. Sometimes the best ideas come when you're moving your body. And that's the Middle Tree Minute.
And now a quick look into Dr. Atman's book, A Philosophical War. Joe, we started talking about how different people can experience the same thing, but really have different interpretations about the same event. So why is that?
Well, and again, with this project, we're talking about the general modality of consciousness and the way that that modality has sort of seeped into us as individuals. We're sort of born into this way of being conscious as a human being, and we all seem to have very similar experiences in a general way about how, again, we as human beings are conscious. However, we have different variations, different lenses, different filters. We talked previously about even having consciousness as a kind of vehicle itself that allows us to sort of travel down that road of reality. So how is it that two people who are experiencing the exact same thing, maybe in the exact same place, can have two totally different versions of the event? And obviously, and we're going to talk again in broad terms, but very simplistically, you have to look at everything very simplistically in order to get to more complicated conclusions. And again, we also talked about how having any conclusions at any point is probably a dangerous way to go. And I think we, as an aside, need to stop trying to get to conclusions and start trying to get to points in a process that are more about the journey rather than discovering a final sort of destination. But that's kind of an aside. And yet at the same time, it ties in perfectly to what we're talking about, because that in and of itself, that process of trying to get to a conclusion, that's a mode of how our consciousness works. So that's a component of how our consciousness operates, is we're frequently trying to get to something. And here, when we're talking about interpretations, well, we're going to get to an answer about how a thing is. But how we get there is going to be colored and varied based upon our capacity to what? Well, our capacity as individuals to take in information and to interact with that information in a very particular way. And that's kind of the key phrase, in a particular way, because we're not objective beings. We don't see everything necessarily that occurs. We only see what we're calibrated and capable of observing. So the question then becomes is, how come we're only capable of and calibrated to things in a particular way? So there's a number of factors as to why that is, but a lot of it has to do with the kind of consciousness that we are given by sort of either our ancestors, or we're born into, like I mentioned before, this general mode that human beings have as a capacity for consciousness, and the general ways in which we operate as a conscious sort of species. But then there are particular, again, brands and things that we are attuned to. A lot of those things are actually given to us at birth. A lot of the ways by which we interpret the world are impressed upon us before we're able to make actual conscious choices about those things and decide whether or not, for we as individuals, those interpretations work for us. So the simple answer as to why two people who are observing the same event at the same place have variations of what occurred is because they have different capacities to intake information. And why do they have different capacities to intake information? Well, because they were either observing different things or they were only capable of observing a certain amount or set of events. So again, that's the simple answer. And then the question becomes, well, why is it that people are attuned to those very particular angles of observation?
Thank you for listening to Educate Everyone with Dr. Joseph Atman and Tammy Trujillo. Join us each week as we explore the inner workings of our own minds and the educational system which builds and supports it. Also, check out our website at middletree.org to see what opportunities Middletree's programs can offer you or your student. And join us on social media. If you have any questions you'd like Dr. Atman to answer, please leave them on a post or send us a message, and you may hear them answered on the next episode of Educate Everyone. Until then, thanks for tuning in.